Welcome to Finding Peace in the Pieces. I'm your host, and today, as you can probably tell from the title, we're asking a pretty big question. Are humans good or bad? And more importantly, why do we hurt each other? We're going to dig underneath that question and explore power, cruelty, empathy, and wounds that can shape us. And if you're an empathic, sensitive, introspective person like me, I'm sure you've asked yourself something similar. Why am I so deeply affected when I see people hurting other people? Maybe you've watched something happen and thought, I could never do that to somebody. Or maybe you've looked at the way some people treat others and genuinely wondered, what makes someone want to hurt another person? If that sounds familiar, join me in the conversation. Let's get into it. All right, so before I get into what I found while digging into this question, I want to give you a little backstory because I think understanding why I even asked this question requires understanding how I grew up. So, I grew up in a pretty stable environment. I lived in a two-parent home, and our home was very quiet and peaceful. My siblings and I never witnessed our parents arguing, and honestly, we got along really well ourselves. From our perspective, our parents were both very peaceful people, very cool, calm, and collected, and they taught us to be the same. We were raised in a very low conflict or low to no conflict environment. We were taught by example that you mind your own business. If nobody's bothering you, leave people alone. Pay attention to your own life. Don't go sticking your nose into other people's business and don't create problems where there don't need to be any. And that's what was demonstrated to us growing up. And apparently, they were pretty good at it because they're still together. They're still very cool, calm people. So, shout out to mom and dad. But seriously, that environment did shape me. So, I've never had a desire to hurt anyone else. And I don't want other people to be hurt either. I like peace, I enjoy solitude, and I definitely believe in the whole live and let live mentality. So long as nobody is getting hurt. Those values became a part of who I am. But eventually I realized something. The world outside of my home wasn't always like the world I grew up in. And that was confusing at first. Because when you grow up believing that people should simply leave each other alone, and then you step outside of that environment and realize that some people actually seek out opportunities to hurt, control, manipulate, humiliate, or take advantage of other people, you start asking questions. At least I did. I found myself trying to make sense of a world that didn't always match my values. And that brings me to the question that we're exploring today. Are humans inherently good or bad? Why are some people a danger to society? Why do we live amongst bullies, abusers, users, and people who seem to have no problem causing pain? Why would one person decide to intentionally harm another? And maybe the question underneath all of those questions is the one that bothers me the most. What makes someone want to hurt another person, especially when that person hasn't done anything to them? Unprovoked. Why? What happens inside of a human that makes causing pain to another person feel acceptable or necessary, or in some cases, even satisfying? That is what I wanted to understand. So I started digging. This is one of those questions that human beings have wrestled with for centuries. Why are we capable of such incredible kindness and yet capable of such incredible cruelty? How can one person dedicate their life to helping others while another person seems to have no problem destroying someone else's life? And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that Maybe the question isn't as simple as are humans good or bad? Maybe we need to go deeper. Because what makes one person choose compassion while another chooses control? What makes one person see another human being's pain and think, I don't want anyone to feel this way, while another sees that same vulnerability and thinks, how can I use this to my advantage? And that's where I started looking at something I hadn't initially considered: power. Because maybe for some people, hurting others isn't really about the pain itself. Maybe it's about what hurting someone gives them: control, dominance, a feeling of superiority, a feeling of importance, a feeling that for once they are not the powerless one. And that opened up an entirely different question for me. Why does a human being need power so badly that they're willing to hurt someone else to get it? Is it survival? Is it fear? Is it insecurity? Is it something they learned? Is it an old wound that was never healed? Or is there something deeper within human nature that makes us capable of choosing cruelty? Those are the questions I want to explore with you. Not because I have all the answers. Honestly, I don't. But because I'm genuinely curious, and maybe you are too. So let's dig a little deeper. Because sometimes to understand the behavior we see on the outside, we have to look at what's happening on the inside. So, this is Finding Peace in the Pieces, and today we're asking, are humans good or bad, and why do we hurt each other? Let's find out. So, in my research, I found that most evidence points to this: humans are capable of both the capacity for empathy, cooperation, and love, also the capacity for selfishness, aggression, and harm. Which side shows up depends on a mix of environment, like how someone was raised, experiences, especially trauma, biology, brain chemistry, impulse control, and mental illness, and beliefs, what they justify as okay. So it's not as simple as people are bad. It's more like people have the ability to become very good or very harmful. I learned that there's no single reason for the reason why people hurt others, but there are patterns. As we discussed earlier, power and control. A lot of harm, especially things like assault, abuse, bullying, is about feeling powerful. Someone feels small, insecure, or out of control internally, and hurting someone else gives them a sense of dominance. It's not logical, it's compensatory. It could be lack of empathy or suppressed empathy. Some people never developed a strong empathy due to neglect, abuse, or neurological factors, or they turn it off to justify what they're doing. If someone doesn't feel another person's pain, it's easier to cause it. Sometimes it's learned behavior. People often repeat that they've seen or repeat what they've seen or experienced. Abused children sometimes become abusive adults. Environments that normalize violence or disrespect create more of it. Not always, but often enough to matter. Often it comes down to a tale as old as time: dehumanization. This is a big one, especially with racism and race advantage. When someone is taught or chooses to believe, hey, these people are less than me, or they don't matter as much, it becomes easier to justify harm, inequality, or indifference. History is full of this. It could be due to fear and insecurity. Sometimes harm comes from fear: fear of losing status, fear of being replaced, fear of differences. That fear turns into control, exclusion, and aggression. Oftentimes, it can be impulse plus lack of self control. Some people act on urges without thinking about consequences. Upon my research, I found this can be influenced by brain development, substance abuse or use, personality disorders, or poor emotional regulation. This one is rare but also very real. It could be the enjoyment of harming others. There are individuals who derive pleasure from hurting others. This is often tied to serious psychological disorders. This is the part that feels most disturbing, and honestly, it should. So, why do humans seek power at all? Going back to power. So, at its core, power is about this: the ability to control your environment and avoid being hurt. That ties to survival. But in modern life, it shows up in more emotional and psychological ways. One, safety and survival, the root layer. In early human history, more power equaled more access to food, shelter, and protection. Less power equaled vulnerability, danger, and even death. That wiring never fully left us. So even today, the brain still equates control with safety and lack of control with threat. But there's the shift. Most people today aren't fighting for physical survival, they're reacting to emotional survival. Emotional safety. This is a big one here. A lot of the need for power comes from trying to avoid feeling small, helpless, rejected, disrespected, and invisible. When someone has felt those things deeply, especially growing up, they may unconsciously decide, I will never feel powerless again. So they seek power to protect themselves from those feelings. Some people use control as a response to chaos. So if someone grew up in an unstable home where there's abuse or neglect or unpredictable environments, they may crave control because control feels like peace. Lack of control feels like danger. For some people, that turns into controlling others, dominating situations, and forcing outcomes. Another could be status and identity. Humans are social. We care where we stand. Power can become tied to identity. So they might think, if I'm powerful, I matter. Or if I'm above others, then I'm safe. This is where things like bullying, racism, and classism can grow because power becomes about being above someone else. Another can be compensation for insecurity. This is one of the most common drivers. When someone feels inadequate, not good enough, or ashamed, power can become a mask. Instead of dealing with insecurity, they dominate, intimidate, or control because it temporarily relieves that inner discomfort. It could be learned behavior. If someone grew up seeing power used to control or harm, respect earned through fear, they may internalize this is how the world works, so they repeat it. Could be a disconnection from others. I read when people lose a sense of connection or empathy, other people become objects, not humans. Power becomes easier to abuse. Connection softens people. Disconnection hardens them. Looking a little more into the power aspect of things, why does power turn into hurting others? So, because for some people, power gets defined as I feel strong when someone else is weaker. That's the distortion. Healthy power says I can take care of myself without harming you. Unhealthy power says I need to control or diminish you to feel okay. Ever seen that before? So, why don't some people feel that need for power? Because for some, the sense of safety isn't built on dominance. If you like peace, you like solitude, you believe in the live and let live mentality, that usually means you don't equate control with safety. You don't need to be above others to feel okay. You have or you value empathy, and not everyone gets there or understands that. So we could say power isn't the problem, it's what people think power is for. Some people use power to protect others, use it to dominate. And that difference usually comes from what they're trying to heal or hide inside. So, yes, survival is the root, but what we see today is more about emotional wounds, fear of vulnerability, identity, learned behavior. Power becomes a tool because people use it to manage what's going on inside of them. All right, so now let's look into unprovoked harm. Why does it happen? What I found in my research is that from the outside it looks unprovoked, but internally there's usually something driving it. Could be rage, entitlement, resentment, a need for control, emotional numbness. Now, that doesn't excuse it, it just explains that it rarely comes from nothing. So maybe instead of asking what is wrong with people, a better question might be what's missing, what's broken or distorted in people who harm others? Because when people are emotionally healthy, secure in themselves, empathic, they don't want to hurt others. If you share the same mindset as me, the live and let live, wanting peace, that's actually what most emotionally regulated people lean toward. That usually comes from empathy. So you feel others' experiences, awareness, you think about impact, or possibly your own pain. You know what hurt feels like and you don't want to cause it. Not everyone develops those feelings. So this leads me to this. The hard truth is there are two truths that exist at the same time. One being humans are capable of incredible kindness, love, and sacrifice. The other being humans are capable of serious harm, cruelty, and indifference. Two things can be true at once. The tension between those two is what defines us. Nothing is wrong with people in a simple sense, but a lot can go wrong within people. The fact that you, like me, are asking, why do people hurt others instead of how do I get ahead or how do I win? That already puts you on the side of people who make the world safer. I'd say we are not naive for craving peace, but we are aware. So, final thought, maybe the real question isn't just why do we hurt each other? Maybe it's what is power to you? Is it control or is it peace? Because the strongest people I've ever seen aren't the ones who dominate a room, they're the ones who don't need to. I want to thank you for sitting with me today, and I want to hear your thoughts. Feel free to share in the comments. Like and subscribe. Take care.